Well, he's been accused of being divisive, self-serving and someone who brings a toxic atmosphere to his working environment. But enough of Bill Leckie. What a week for Celtic, what a week for Scottish football. What about that statement, Bill? Talk to him about it. Incredible stuff from Dermot Desmond, filleting Brendan Rodgers on his way out the door.
As I described it in my piece this morning, the Kraken awakes. He says very little, you hear nothing from Dermot Desmond. So you know how much Brendan Rodgers got under his skin with his comments, his behaviour over the last couple of months, and it was quite. I mean, it was remarkable enough that sort of 5 to 10 on Monday night. Suddenly it breaks. Brendan Rodgers leaves. Biff. And then you go, Martin O'Neill's in. Woof. And then within 15 minutes of that, this 554-word statement comes out, and it was a proper filleting. We've joked before about this. Every manager who leaves a club now, they put an F7 in the computer and it comes up.
Thank
blah,
you for
blah,
your efforts.
Blah blah said, today parted company with blah blah. Would like to thank blah blah for their efforts and wish them all the best for the future. That could not have been further away from what Dermot Desmond threw after Brendan Rodgers as he went out the door. It was quite remarkable.
Yeah, it was funny because there were kind of a few rumours that evening. Myself and David Friel were kind of in contact with each other, kind of making some calls on it, and then it kind of emerged that it was very much happening.
Yeah.
As you said, it very quickly went from right to here. There's going to be a statement coming, right? Fine. So you kind of start writing the kind of, you say the kind of the normal man leaves club and everything that happens. And no, just hang fire 5 minutes. There's something else coming.
Something else is coming.
Like genuinely jaw dropping stuff. I've got to be honest with you. We've been talking about on this pod for a wee while now about Rodgers and the relationship. Obviously, Roger Hanna did the story about what was going on behind the scenes there, and it's been proven to be correct. Does it leave a bit of a sour taste in the mouth how it's ending? Because for me, there's faults on both sides.
Yeah, very much so. And
I don't really like the way this is kind of shaped out for Brendan Rodgers. I know he's had his faults. I know there's been questions. We've sat here and we've debated things he's said and done in the last few months. But essentially, he's been a top Celtic manager.
He has.
And I don't think he deserves the kind of, as I say, the fillet that he's got. This
is what happened the last time as well. I mean, he left to go to Leicester City.
Different circumstances.
I know, but I'm saying, but at the same time, then straight away fans came out with the big banners, never a Celt, always a fraud. And it became very polarised how people felt about him. And it'll be the same this time as well. But I have to say that I've been writing and I've been saying on here and I've been on radio, said it and I've written it. He had to be more aware. Unless he was aware all the time of what he was saying. But I felt he had to be more aware of what he was saying and who he was saying it about, because it felt to me as if a lot of it was deflecting away blame for the fact that Celtic hadn't been the same Celtic as we'd seen before since about January, February.
Yeah.
They had been on the slide, and he wasn't doing enough to sort it.
You mentioned a number of weeks ago about an entitlement on Brendan Rodgers' part, and when I watched that back, I wasn't too sure about that. I genuinely wasn't too sure about that, because I think there are clear faults in what's been happening behind the scenes here. Definitely. And I think as manager, as an elite manager, which is what he is, I think that's his job to push and try and get the club to be operating at the highest level he thinks they can operate in.
Yeah, but it's also his job as a manager to get the best out of the players he has.
Yeah, that's true.
And we talk, everybody's done the Honda Civic thing to death now, right? But against Dundee and against Hearts in the last two games that he's lost, he's been playing, Kieran Tierney and £5 million wingers and £11 million of Arnie Engels and Callum McGregor and Kasper Schmeichel, and they're better players than Dundee and Hearts have got, and he's not getting the tune out of it. And I think if you are going to be a top manager, you can do both. You can have the argument with the board that says, by the way, I need more from you, but you can also say to the players, I need more from you. And I think that's the bit he's let himself down on.
Yeah, but at the same time, the statement from Dermot Desmond nails him on so many things, or attempts to nail him on so many things, that if you're Brendan Rodgers, I mean, you'd have paid money to literally see his face when he read that statement for the first time, because, as I say, it must have been jaw-dropping.
Yeah.
And if he's going to come back now, time will tell whether and if and when and how he does come back, because you'd imagine the next time he sits in front of a TV camera at his next job, wherever that may be, one of the first questions is going to be, Brendan, what about that statement and what about that exit? But I would suspect he's going to have to choose his words very carefully, because Dermot Desmond's an all-powerful
Well, we all remember that. We all remember the fallout with Alec Ferguson over the Rock of Gibraltar horse thing, and some people are up there and some people are up there when it comes to the clout they have. But you would also be wondering if you're Brendan Rodgers and you sat down with your legal team, you might say, wait a minute, this is reputationally very damaging. I mean, you go to your next job and they say, well, listen, this was the reference you got from your last sort of major shareholder. What do you say about that? Reputationally, it has absolutely left them without a name.
Yeah. One thing I will say though is that when Dermot Desmond goes through all those character flaws and issues that he's got with Brendan Rodgers, one after the other, why did it take Brendan Rodgers to resign? If these are things that were happening over the last...
You mean why didn't they sack him?
Yeah, if these are things that were happening over the last number of weeks and months, and he's catalogued them one after the other, why did Brendan Rodgers, why was he not sacked?
Right, we're not privy to these things, but if it's you and I, right, and you're my gaffer, you're the major shareholder.
Well, I'm your gaffer.
Well, you're my gaffer, right, and I'm just a minion doing my job, and I'm not doing it very
Correct.
well, right, which is probably the way it is. And we sit down and you say, listen, you have been continually to me, you've been disrespectful, you've done this, you've done that, you need to turn that round or we've got a problem. And I say, listen, I think it's your problem, I think I'm doing my job very well. It'll get to the point where they say, well, it's either you sort this out or we're finished. And I maybe go, I'll tell you what, stuff it, I'm away. That might be how it goes.
It might have been how it went.
We don't know, we're never going to know probably.
We don't know, we may never know as you say, but I don't know, there's something about it.
It's the whole thing's bad for Celtic.
But the resignation side of it doesn't stack up to me, you know. It genuinely
Is that maybe an agreement?
Yeah, but an agreement and then you put a statement out like that. You know, that's my point. But as I'm saying, if there's got to be there's a question there. If Brendan Rodgers is guilty of all these things, then why was he not sacked? If it's been happening weeks, I mean, we had the story when
September 6th.
So this has been happening around that time. So why did it get to the stage where it took, from what they're claiming, it took Brendan Rodgers to resign and he's away?
Well,
I don't know, it doesn't add up.
There are two very polarised views in this whole thing. Some people will tell you that Brendan Rodgers was working his ticket, that he was looking to get out at the end of the season or whatever it was. Some people will tell you the board were trying to force him into a corner. There seems to be there might be a bit of truth in both.
I think that's probably a bit.
And they bang off each other to a point where it's unworkable.
Sorry.
The thing that staggered me about it, I did my call on Monday saying that just how lost I thought Brendan Rodgers looked in the face of what Hearts were doing to Celtic on Sunday. We can come back to Hearts later on, but he didn't look as if he had an answer to what Derek McInnes was doing on that side of the track. And I thought, this is unravelling. And if they were to go and play Rangers next Sunday under Brendan Rodgers and not beat Rangers, we would be heading Terminado direction. The fact that it then went so quickly from there tells you that something really dramatic has happened in the 12 hours, 18 hours after the game.
Yeah, I don't think he was working his ticket. I wouldn't go that far, but I do think he's been a different... We've been watching him and dealing with him for a number of years now. You kind of get, how guys behave, and there's no doubt he was behaving kind of differently from... Yeah. I almost think he got to the point where he's just like, I'm just saying what I think, and whether it's you, me, whoever, you're getting it.
But that suggests that you are not seeing yourself as being there for the long haul.
I don't think there's any doubt he wasn't there for the long haul. I wrote it in February that this was his last season.
But your take on it then was the one that I think a lot of people would have had, which they'd come back this season, they'd carry on their domination because they were doing really well. They'd get to about February, they'd announce that he was leaving at the end of the season, and it would be basically a big lap of honour until May.
Yeah.
But it's changed so dramatically.
It's changed so dramatically, and it almost didn't have to happen. If Celtic had just made 2 or 3 decent signings during the early part of the transfer window, we're not in this movie.
They made a lot of signings though.
Yeah, but they've made a lot of kind of average signings. You know, they didn't. I know. Listen, we're going over old ground, but they didn't replace the quality players that they had to replace at a time when they had to replace them. But at the same time, we come back to it. The Kairat performance over those 2 legs comes down to Brendan Rodgers for me and the team. Yeah. Not just him, but and the team. The cup final. So people, if you look at it, people might say, well, the recruitment, fine, but they still had a good... That Kairat were bang average.
Yeah, that's why I'm saying...
It's not a one-off 90-minute game where you lose like a cup game. 2 legs.
Yeah.
I was at both games.
Can't score a goal.
Couldn't believe Celtic went out that night in Kazakhstan. Incredible defeat that. And that's on Brendan Rodgers and the players. They were good enough players to do that. But at the same time, I think that it's amazing how quickly things, as I say, from the start of the season when you're looking at where Rangers are and even Hearts who are going through that transition, we'll talk to them about them in a minute, how quickly it's gone from there to there.
But that's happened certainly throughout my time in this job. It happens to either one side of the old firm or the other all the time. There's usually a kind of 3-year cycle where one of them's dominant, although you've had the blips of the nines, down the decades. But generally, one of them will get 2 or 3 years, and in the third year, the manager starts to come under a bit of pressure. And once they come under pressure, they go really quickly, And it's happened to loads of them over the years. We could name bucket loads of them at Rangers and Celtic. But I come back on what you're saying there too. Like the night of the Kyrat game at Parkhead, I wrote that the board had taken a huge gamble on waiting until they got through.
Yeah.
And if they didn't get through, it would come back to haunt them, and it did. However, at the same time, I still think Brendan Rodgers should have been getting far more out of the players who he had.
I don't think the board deliberately took the gamble. I said this at the time. I just think they weren't good enough at getting deals done. I think that's their flaw. That's their failing.
Well, in that terrible statement they put out,
they've got they basically admitted that. Yeah. They've got guys in executive positions there who don't know how to get deals done, get them over the line.
Yeah,
and when they're negotiating, they're negotiating contracts and transfers, the guy sitting on the opposite side of the table takes about 2 seconds to realise he's not equipped to deal with this, and I can manipulate this conversation the way I want to manipulate it. And Celtic don't know how to deal with that. And I think Brendan Rodgers was aware of that. I don't think it was a calculated, we'll get through Kyrat and then we'll try and sign X, Y and Z. I don't think it was a case of that. I don't think they're guilty of that. I think they're guilty of being that's not good enough.
That statement basically said, there was a part of that statement that basically said, we try and do deals and then agents don't phone us back. What are we meant to do?
Go figure.
Phone them back and say, I want that player, here's an extra 500 grand.
Yeah. Listen, he's away now. It will be fascinating to see, as I say, what is said and done next. There's talk of him even potentially being at the game on Sunday, which would be remarkable in itself if he's sitting in the stand. I don't know if it will be, but it's almost a meanwhile, as we call it in the trade, that Martin O'Neill is now back at Celtic. I was sitting at Celtic Park yesterday having he was very light-hearted yesterday, which I actually thought that would be the way he would handle it.
Yeah.
I think that's maybe something that some Celtic fans have gone, come on, listen, we're in a serious predicament here. We need a bit of more, But at the same time, that's a 73-year-old Martin O'Neill and how he deals with things now. What do you make of that? It's a short-term thing. He's not going to be the manager probably in a month.
Yeah.
He's got Sean Maloney. It won't be.
No,
it won't be.
It won't be.
Celtic are, as we speak, looking at a number of potential candidates. Kieran McKenna been one. There's various other names flying around.
You've been very warm towards the idea of Ange.
We'll need to delete that podcast from about a month ago if Ange comes back. I think he's a fantastic manager and a great guy. What do you make of Martin O'Neill? Is it fairly shrewd, short-term appointment? He's going to go in, we're recording this Wednesday morning, he's going to go in there tonight, he'll get the standing ovation.
Of course he will.
For about 5 minutes, and then they'll start singing about sacking the board.
Well, I don't know if they will actually. I think he's the kind of guy that might just, in the short term, they might unite people, because there's a bit of respect there in terms of, can we do this in front of St
No chance, Bill. No chance.
What I will say is, right, I mean, to borrow something Martin might have said it himself many years ago, it was fairly remarkably astonishing, wasn't it, that he suddenly appeared.
Extraordinary.
And as you all know, he and I never had a relationship. But I watched him yesterday and I thought, there's a guy. I've always thought about Martin O'Neill. He's never been my favourite person, but I think he's the kind of guy you would go and play for. He's got something about him. He's learned from people like Brian Clough. He's got tremendous inner strength, and he's got a very weird way of communicating sometimes, but he makes a lot of sense. And I think he is probably the right person just now to get a hold of people and just say, look, forget what's going on. Think about now. Go out there, win that game, then we'll see what happens tomorrow. I mean, he was asked, could you have imagined you'd have an Old Firm game coming out? And he says, I'm not even thinking about it.
Yeah.
Only thinking about Falkirk. Yeah. I like that. I like that attitude.
Yeah, it was quite funny.
He was very self-deprecating.
He was. That's what he is. Listen, when he became Celtic manager 25 years ago, he was 48.
Yeah.
He was on the rise.
And full of fire.
He was full of fire. He was full of argument. I remember him. He phoned me one day. I wrote a piece after Neil Lennon's debut for Celtic up at Dens Park, and the next morning he was on the phone berating me for this piece I had written about Neil Lennon.
We've all had those phone calls from Martin.
But down the years, I enjoy his company.
I know you do, yeah.
I do enjoy his company. I think he's similar to Gordon Strachan. Gordon Strachan, when he talks about the way he was as Celtic manager, he almost doesn't recognise himself because then further down the line he's Scotland manager and he deals with the press differently, and again, great company and a great guy. So
I had the Martin phone call one day when I was my son would have been about 13 or 14. We were out for lunch one day, and he phoned me. It was the morning after Celtic had been in Brussels against Anderlecht, and I was when Vincent Kompany, I think, got sent off early on, and Celtic playing against 10 men lost 1-0 in the end. And I had criticised the way he'd used his substitutes or whatever, and it should have beaten 10 men. And he phoned me and he absolutely went through me. And I realised that I think Steve Walford and John Robertson were always in the background.
Yeah.
And you could hear them giggling away.
Yeah.
And he's going to be, what right? He's basically said, doing the whole show me your medals thing.
Yeah.
And I said, Martin, do you ever watch the telly? He went, of course I watch the telly. I said, do you ever say that programme's rubbish? What do you mean? And I said, well, this is what I'm doing, this is my job. And he was not having it, and the phone went down, and it was.
I do think actually when he phoned me that morning in 2000, I'm convinced that Neil Lennon was sitting in the back. I think I was on speaker, and I was getting berated for a good reason, probably for a good reason. Anyway, a long time ago. But listen, I think it's a pretty smart move to get him in the short term. I think Sean Maloney's going to be the guy that picks a team who kind of stands front and centre.
Well, when you think
I think Martin O'Neill's the guy who's going to just kind of be there.
When you think that Martin was still doing radio yesterday morning while Sean was taking training,
talking about Hearts winning the league,
which was that's got to be one of the most amazing little juxtapositions of all time, isn't it?
He was funny about that in the press conference because he was obviously asked about it, and he said, "Oh yeah, I stand by every word." I mean, obviously I wouldn't have said it if I was going to be sitting here, but he stood by every word. No, fascinating times. What does Celtic do next? As I say, there are a number of names flying around. Kieran McKenna,
I like Kieran McKenna.
Ipswich manager. That's one that I think could have legs.
Kieran McKenna's obviously had a very difficult time in the Premier League in England. He would, because they didn't have the money to go and buy, big players. But he developed the likes of Liam Delap, and a really good player that they then sold for 30 million. What I love was when they came up through League One and into the Championship and then into the Premier League, the way they played was very dynamic. It was very hard pressing. It was very fast. It was quite Postecoglou-ish. And they scored an enormous amount of late goals came from behind a lot, which is very Celtic-ish. And I think that's the kind of manager Celtic needs. Somebody, because on the last two games where Celtic have been behind, I've written this both weeks, that there was a day when we've been there watching St Mirren against Celtic. You've been 1-0 up against Celtic, you've been 2-0 up against Celtic, and into injury time you still don't think you're going to win the game. And those last two games of Celtic, you just went, when there were 2 goals down, that's it, done.
Yeah.
And they need somebody who comes in and has that kind of we never stop attitude that Ange used to talk about. And I think Kieran McKenna would be good. I from what I understand, he's on a very, very golden handcuffs
big
deal.
Money, yeah, big money.
So it might, but then if you're going to pay £5 million for wingers and £11 million for midfielders, you go and pay for the manager.
And they've got the money.
They've got the money. They're sitting on, and Ipswich know they've got the money.
Yeah.
Who else would you be thinking about?
There's obviously Ange is a name that's flying around. Craig Bellamy, I think, has done a good job at Wales. Obviously, been it as a Celtic player. Is he someone that comes into the equation? I don't know. He's obviously at the kind of early part of his managerial career, albeit, as I say, he's worked in international football. Do you think the Ange one? I said it before with Gerrard when we spoke about Steven Gerrard potentially come back to Rangers. I kind of said it with Brendan Rodgers as well. I'm never sure about managers going or coming back. What do you make of that one? All joking apart, he obviously had
I would say
he won
no.
a lot at Celtic.
I would say no. Right now, if I was Ange, I'd be taking a holiday and I'd be getting my head together after what happened at Tottenham and then happened at Forest. I was watching a bit of a sort of blog podcast thing yesterday by one of the sort of Celtic fan guys who said, why do we keep going back to the last guy and Rangers are the same. Why do you keep going back looking for somebody to be who they were? Martin O'Neill to be who he was 25 years ago, Brendan Rodgers to be who he'd been 5 years before, instead of looking forward. And that's what Ange would be. It would be, can you recreate the magic that you did before? And it's always a risk, because since then he's been damaged. And there's no doubt he's just a very strong character. He's water off a duck's back and all that. But what happened at Tottenham must have hurt him. What happened at Forest must have hurt him. And as this guy said on his blog, you've got the whole of Europe and the world to go and look at. Yeah. Go and find the right guy.
Yeah, he also, when Ange Postecoglou came into Celtic, it was almost a kind of clean slate at that point to go and he made very shrewd signings very quickly. Mm-hmm. Obviously, the window's not open yet.
No.
The January window tends to be tougher to get signings done than the summer window. So it's maybe that may be something that's part of his thinking. Because the squad there right now, You know,
the last thing he needs is
seriously revamped.
The last thing he needs is a third hard time in the space of a year.
Yeah.
You know, there's only so much you can, no matter how strong a catch.
Yeah, but where does Ange going to end up next? If he, in terms of English football, if he's wanting to stay in English football, you know, you just say he's had a couple of tough ones. You know.
Yeah.
It's like what's his next job? He's not getting a top English.
I could see him going back into international football again.
Think so?
Yeah, international manager somewhere. Yeah.
Greece.
Why not?
Something like that.
Why not? But Celtic, I think Kieran McKenna fits the profile perfectly. And it would be really fascinating to see both halves of the old firm with these young thinking managers.
That's actually something that I think, speaking to someone yesterday, I think it could, the young element, I think something that we're thinking about. I think that kind of young energy is what I think Celtic will be targeting, and that's maybe why I think, not just because he's been there before, but the Ange thing. You know, I think they'll ask the question. I think they'll be right to ask the question, in the same way that Rangers were right to ask Steven Gerrard the question, almost just to tick that box. But I think I can see Celtic going down the kind of younger,
I think Celtic got the best of Ange.
You know,
I think Celtic got the very best of Ange.
Yeah, McKenna I think would tick a lot of boxes. As I say, we were speaking to Martin O'Neill yesterday. I actually asked him about McKenna, and he spoke highly of him. You know, so I wonder if his view behind the scenes might be maybe something that
he's
consideration
come
as well.
Through the Manchester United Academy, so he's at a very good ground, and he was very highly thought of there. He made his move to Ipswich. He won 2 championships back to back. If you're him, you're thinking, if Celtic come in now, all right, there might be a lot of negotiating to do, but let's just say it doesn't go well for Ipswich over the next year or so. A manager's star falls very quickly. This could be his time.
You can argue it's a good time to get the Celtic job as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
What about, I mean, obviously games tonight, which we'll kind of obviously we'll see what happens there. But Hearts are right in the mix. Let's talk about Hearts for a minute or two, because I was at Tynecastle on
tremendous.
Sunday, and they were fantastic. Dennis McInnes, I mean, we've obviously mentioned Celtic, how they're off it, but Hearts taking the opposition out of the equation, they were fantastic to a man. There was moments where Derek, obviously where you sit in the press box, almost right behind the dugouts, and there was moments where he was unhappy. And even post-match, he spoke about things that he thinks has to improve. It's not as if they were just delirious about the result.
I didn't think they were the very best.
Well, that's a good point.
I think there's more in Hearts than you saw on Sunday. The thing that I thought was really interesting was they got the goal, right? A bit fortunate with the goal, but they pressed Celtic hard, panicked him into making mistakes. Callum McGregor then has his wee 10 minutes where he does captain fantastic, gets them back into it, and you think, right, okay, the keeper then has to make a phenomenal save from Negrin to keep it 1-1, and you're thinking, this is where the test of Hearts is. Hearts last year before, would end up losing 4-1. But Derek McInnes' in-game management for me is tremendous. The way he tweaks his team, the way he uses his substitutions, the depth he's now got in his squad. And in the end, it was a very, very comfortable win for them. And that's with maybe they've maybe got another wee level up they could have gone. I was so impressed by them. Yeah,
that was the thing as well. You looked at their bench, they've got real quality. When Derek was making changes, the team wasn't necessarily getting weakened, you know.
No.
There was guys coming on, you think, they're kind of maintaining the standard that they're at.
Absolutely.
If not improving
and
it.
That's got to be pushing the guys. He's played the same starting 11 for the last 5 games now.
Yeah.
That has got to be pushing these guys to keep their standards up.
I think it's a huge thing for them that they haven't had European football.
Yes.
Right? Rangers and Celtic have had to deal with that. I think it's something they've struggled with, that kind of relentless Thursday, Sunday thing. I think that's been part of the problem. Hearts haven't had that. And we're now in a period upcoming, not a huge amount of games, but there's a few midweeks coming up where Hearts will have to deal with that, and I think that's going to be a test for them.
Yes.
And how I think they will handle it. I think, as I say, I think they've got a squad depth that should allow them to handle that, but that's going to be a difference that they're going to have to deal with.
And at some point, he's playing the same team all the time. So at some point,
he's going to have to mix
they'll
up.
have injuries, they'll have suspensions. You look at Craig Halkett's injury record. He's been magnificent this season, but he's a guy who's had injury problems. They need to keep him fit. They need to keep Shankland fit. I have never seen Lawrence Shankland look as sharp and quick and busy about the park as he is just now. Last season there was times when you thought he looked a wee bit heavy around the hips and he looked a bit kind of disheartened. Now, as a straight centre forward, get him up the park, and there was a point on Sunday in the first half of the game where Celtic were doing their little horseshoe or doom around the edge of the penalty box, and he went from keeper to left back to right back to centre half, and he just stopped them getting anywhere. And it's not. And Dennis McInnes talked about it, I think, in his press conference yesterday, where he's not the quickest guy in the team, but he covers more ground than anybody else in the team. And you could never have said that about Lawrence Shankland before.
I don't know. I thought it was actually one point in the second half where Celtic had a break, and he was the guy sprinting back. And,
Absolutely.
And it was fantastic to see. Yeah, listen, there's guys. I think one of the things, again, with strength of Hearts, there's guys sitting in the stand now, who are unable to get on the bench.
Yes.
You know, guys who have been good Hearts players.
Yeah, Alan Forrest
and Spittle.
Yeah.
And James Wilson.
Yeah.
A year ago, James Wilson's a Scotland player.
I know.
You know, and I think that's someone. I mean, he's someone with a big future.
Oh,
but you're probably looking in January that he's maybe somebody to look to get out on loan just to go and get games somewhere.
Well, look at the boy Ague he's coming from the Brazilian boy. He's paid over £1 million, record fee, and he gets on in for the last 20 minutes, but only because Kesaridis pulled his calf a little bit. Yeah. He might well play against. Someone would say we're saying this on the Wednesday morning. I think there's a chance he'll play against St Mirren. Kesaridis might step out for the start of the game, but do you know they've just got depth. They've got a lot about them. There's a long, long way to go. But what they're giving Scottish football just now is a feeling that you only get once in a generation. Yeah,
it's fantastic. It will be interesting as well. But you say Kesaridis, others in the squad who you got to imagine will be attracting attention.
Absolutely.
I know.
But that'll be part of the Tony Bloom plan, though.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. So that could be a situation they have to manage as well. And come January, if they've got offers, because what is the long-term plan?
Yeah.
It's to get guys in at a certain price and move them on at
the Brighton model.
Right. So, but at the same time, if they're in the mix still, which they will be, let's keep the squad together. And,
what's happened at Brighton and this will take a couple of years to kick in at Hearts, but they'll go away very quietly and sign guys that you've never heard of, and they'll give them a year in the youth team or put them out on loan, whatever. And then when they sell the next Caicedo or whoever they sell, the guy's ready to come in, and you barely even notice that there's been a change. You know, they've done it with so many players. And do you know, watching Tony Bloom in the stand on Sunday, you know, you think of the difference between where he is, where Hearts are, and where Celtic are, and where Rangers have been. That the Celtic directors and the Rangers directors are getting absolute pelters, and he's standing doing a million selfies with punters. What a great feeling that must be to be around Hearts at the moment and to be in that place. Yeah, very much so. I think Rangers and Celtic can both really look at that model and that recruitment strategy that Hearts have been able to tap into. That's something. Well, listen, we've mentioned recruitment so many times on here and in the paper, whatever. Hearts have been able to tap into that and aligned with a good manager, a really top manager. They're in a great place. So interesting to see how things pan out. Big weekend. What about Rangers? Because you and was it Poster? You and David were sitting here last week talking about Danny Rule. Is it Rule? I've been really impressed with him. I have to tell you. As a guy or as a coach?
Yeah, both. I think it's hard to judge him as a coach yet. I think there are real signs there that he clearly knows what he's doing. He's obviously a very, very good coach, but more the way he's handled the situation. I thought I was in Bergen last week.
Yeah, his behaviour there was fantastic.
Pre-match, post-match, going over to the crowd, I thought was real smart. And I just like the cut his jib. You know, I just think he's got something. You know.
And you know, three weeks ago, when the draw got made, whatever, you'd have said Rangers have got no chance in that semi-final.
They've got
a chance now. I mean, they were absolutely appalling in Bergen. They were. I mean, James Tavernier. We did the interview with him. Never seen him as.
He was genuinely furious.
And because that was a dreadful performance. That was as bad a performance as they put in Bruges. Even though they only lost by 3 this time. But they came out of the weekend and he made a few changes and he's got the win over Kilmarnock, which they should be doing. So they still haven't done anything they shouldn't be doing. Again, we're talking on Wednesday morning. It'll be very interesting to see how they perform away to Hibs.
That's a difficult game for them.
Yeah, but they now have a chance in the semi-final. Their fans will turn up thinking, right, Celtic are in a bit of turmoil, you know. I don't think Rangers fans will be particularly frightened that Martin O'Neill's in the dugout. You know, they'll be saying, oh, Celtic are looking back the way. That becomes a different beast, this game, doesn't it? Yeah, no, absolutely. It absolutely does. You just say, a lot can happen tonight, but both teams, the follow-out of that, get into the Old Firm game, could be important. But yeah, I just think I wasn't at the Rangers game at the weekend, but reading the reports and speaking to some people who were there was an energy about Rangers. You know, there was a real intensity about their play. Now, it wasn't flawless by any stretch of the imagination, clearly, but
I think there was a difference. You can see that what he's been doing on the training pitch has been translating onto the football pitch, and I think that's something that was the accusation of Russell Martin.
There was no energy,
but that wasn't happening. He was talking about how great they were on the training pitch, but it wasn't transferring onto the game on a Saturday. So I think there was, from what I could see, there were clear differences in how the team were pressing and moving and energy, and I think that's all fans.
That's what they want. Well,
that's a big part of what they want.
We sat through that Old Firm game at Ibrox, the start of the season, 0-0. One of the worst games of football you'll ever see anywhere. And the lack of energy and intensity from both sides was quite shocking. Mm-hmm. And the way Celtic are playing just now, they've been really slow and pedantic, and they're not creating chances. Energy could be a big decider in this semi-final.
Yeah.
You know that when St Mirren play Motherwell on Saturday in the semi-final, both of them have got nothing. They've both got so much to gain and nothing to lose, and they're going to just go for each other.
Empty the tank. Yeah.
But Rangers and Celtic, the energy that one of them produces over the other could be the big decider, because neither of them have outstanding quality in the team. But if Danny Rall in his first day when he came into the Rangers said it's all about chasing and harrying and sprinting and sprinting and sprinting and not going up to the full-back and turning back and rolling it back to somebody, it's about going past the full-back. If he can bring that into Rangers, unless Celtic can step up to match that, Celtic have a problem.
Yeah, a bit of a fascinating game. But you're right, at the Bergen game, Brian Bergen game last week, that was for me. You're going to that game expecting, right? They've got a new manager now.
Yeah, they're going to lift their game.
They're going to raise their game. Now, they might not be perfect. They might not be. The quality might not be particularly high because we can see that the players are only at a certain level. But you're at least going to have them busting their gut. And when that didn't happen, you're thinking, that's really strange, actually. When your new manager comes in and it's still that same lethargy.
The lack of communication between the Rangers players and Bergen at a couple of the goals was frightening. Yeah. Balls coming in and guys getting in each other's road and basically standing on each other's toes. So he'll have seen that and said, right, okay, that gives me a template. What do I need to take out of that and move that aside and bring that in? He gets a result on the Saturday. He then goes into a midweek game. He then goes into Sunday, and that becomes the first big test of where he's at.
Yeah, obviously St Mirren are going to be in the League Cup final. So who you want them to play, Rangers or Celtic?
I take it to them.
The same with
honestly, 11 odds against 22 of them. We'll just
a big weekend for St Mirren, though. The Olds Open apart.
Brilliant.
Great semi-final. I'm going to go on Saturday night.
Yes.
Saturday night game. It's got something about. I think it could be great.
I'd rather it was 3 o'clock. And
do you?
It's tea time on a Saturday. I don't. It's not a time for football. Anyway, that doesn't matter. The semi-final is going to be great. Two teams with really different styles. We're quite direct. We play for position and long throws and free kicks, getting in behind, and you try to get in behind a Motherwell team who play really high up the park. I mean, Motherwell's goalkeeper plays further up the park than some centre halves, and Motherwell are a lovely team to watch, but have been very flaky at times. So you've got a real clash of styles, and it'd be very interesting. Interesting.
The thing about Motherwell these days, I think as well, if Motherwell to go 2-0 ahead, the game's not over.
It's not over, no.
That's the thing. They don't really seem to be putting teams to bed. I hope they don't go 2-0 ahead, frankly. But I'm fascinated to watch, actually, as you say, because it's two different styles. It's two managers with different philosophies in the game. But what an opportunity these teams have got.
And from our point of view, Stephen Robinson took Motherwell to a final before. Yeah. I think his reward for what he's done with St Mirren would be to go to a final. I mean, he's been fantastic for St Mirren. He's been absolutely brilliant. The way he's managed players, the way he's made players better, the way he's attached helped attach the team to the fans has been terrific. Now Hampden's going to be, you can call it half full or half empty, whatever you think, but everybody that's there is going to create a great atmosphere, and I really am excited about the game. Yeah, really am.
Confident?
No, never ever, never have been in my life. Never. I've bet on us once, I bet on myself. I bet on us once a year, and that's to win the Scottish Cup. And it came right once, so...
It came on a couple of times, three times.
I've only won the Scottish Cup once in my lifetime.
Aye? 59?
I was too young to bet in 59 and 26.
You say that.
But no, great. It's going to be a great weekend of semi-final football. And at the same time, Hearts playing to try and get another 3 points.
Well, that's the thing, that's another opportunity when Rangers and Celtic are not playing at the weekend in the league. Hearts, whatever happens tonight, have that opportunity to get another 3 points on the board and extend their lead.
We're into a really, really interesting part of the season.
Yeah.
Because then Rangers Celtic, more European games, then Scotland, the big 2 games. November's going to be fantastic for football.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll be keeping an eye on everything that's obviously happening off the pitch. I think there's more to come in this story. Yes. I don't think the Celtic situation is over. Fascinated to see what Brendan Rodgers says next when he decides to come out and speak about it. But
probably texting you just now.
Well, I'm not sure about that. So
that's Ange.
Telling Ange. That's about us. Let us know in the comments section below. We've had some great feedback in the last few weeks. Let us know everything about what you think about Celtic, Rangers, Hearts, Cup semi-finals, everything you want. And for all the best news and views, stick with Sunsport, and we'll catch up with you next week.